Hello and welcome to interviews with Hyperpolyglots at HYPIA. I'm President HYPIA, Dr. Usman Chohan, and today it is my supreme pleasure to welcome Stefan Ivanovski, soon to be, inshallah, Dr. Stefan Ivanovski. Welcome. Good to see you, my dear old friend. How are you?
Great, Dr. Usman. Thank you. It's a pleasure to reconnect again with you after several years. Yeah, the first time we met in person and the last time we saw each other was back in Skopje, Macedonia in 2016, right?
You
So
have
it's
an
been
excellent memory. That's right.
7 years, 7 years. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you
almost seven
haven't
years.
aged a bit, you know. You look the same.
Oh no, you too, you too.
Oh, that's not true. But you look wonderful, and I was in
Thank you.
Macedonia to have a good time to discover your country. I fell in love with it thanks to you and your fellow shapers. What a wonderful country, what wonderful people like you.
No, you're great. I think in my experience, the shapers I've met from abroad who've come to Skopje who's left the most impact because you're very outgoing, very easy to get along with, and you're very curious about Skopje and the culture and very well informed. So it was a pleasure to talk, and I felt like we didn't have enough time to. I mean, also your stay was there very short, very brief.
That's right. It was 48 hours, but now we're making up for lost time in this interview. So I would request, please introduce yourself. Who are you and what are you up to these days?
Okay, so as you've introduced me, I'm Stefan Ivanovski. I'm currently pursuing a PhD in industrial and labor relations at Cornell University. When I'm in the States, I like to do this introduction with people I meet from the US and some other countries. I don't think it would work very well in the Balkans most of the time. I don't think it's as interesting, but I say usually I was born in a country that no longer exists. So I was born in the former Yugoslavia, in Belgrade. My parents moved to Macedonia. I was raised in Macedonia and did briefly studied in high school for 3 years in the Netherlands and also pursued my undergrad master's degree and currently my PhD degrees in the United States. So that's briefly about me.
And there's one magical part. Yes, you're in economics, but the magical part is that you are also a hyperpolyglot and you speak many different languages. So, how many? What's the deal with them? A little bit of the history.
Okay, so well, yeah, this is exactly why we are here. So if I would say, I've been thinking about it. Uh, so my mother tongue, I would always say it's Macedonian, but then when I reflected on it, it's actually Serbian because my mom's from Serbia, and so she through her we learned Serbian, so I can speak Serbian. Then from my father's side, and having been raised in Macedonia, Macedonian. Then obviously we're currently speaking in English, so English. When I was doing my undergrad studies, I decided to pursue Spanish. So Spanish was one of my majors and I studied abroad in Argentina and Spain while I was there, and also lived in Puerto Rico and Mexico for a summer in each place. So that's how I've been able to be exposed to different accents in Spanish. So I've so those are four languages that I can say that I speak at a very high proficient level. I can also get by in Portuguese. It's been helpful to know Spanish. So I've been to Brazil and also I have spent some time with Brazilians, and I've been able to pick up some Portuguese by way of interaction. So I've also studied German when I was in high school in the Netherlands. I just like the sound of German, and this is what drew me into the language. And I've been studying it for 3 years in high school, and then a year and a half in university. But as I was studying German and Spanish at the same time, I was starting to confuse the two languages because they were at this beginner intermediate level. So I would try to speak Spanish, and then I would think of German words, or I would go in German class and think of Spanish words. In the middle of a sentence, I would start speaking in German, and then Spanish words would come up. And then I had to go speak with my German professors and tell them, I have to choose one language. And unfortunately, it breaks my heart to say that I will have to focus on Spanish at this time. And so, yeah, I speak a little bit of German as well. And yeah, I can understand Bulgarian. It's very similar to Macedonian, and of course, by knowing Serbian, it's also easy to understand and relate to people from Croatia, Montenegro, Bosnia, and so forth.
Oh, very short list, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And in addition to this, we met through a forum for the youth tied to the World Economic Forum, which is known as the Global Shapers. You were a shaper, and that was a really cool network for me to have the privilege of meeting you and other people like us. Tell me a little bit about your experience with the Global Shapers.
Oh, that's a good question. So I was invited to join the Global Shapers in 2013. That's when the hub in Skopje was founded. So at the time, I was working at the civil society organization that was run by the founding curator of the Skopje Hub, Zoran Stojkovski, and he approached me and he said, "Oh, I think that you would be a good fit for this organization." So we started off being 6 people in 2013. So as soon as I joined the Global Shapers in Skopje, then I went to the US to pursue my master's in city planning. And after coming back, I became more involved in helping build the Global Shapers Hub. And we started off this event called I Fail, which is an inspiration from a Mexican event. I'm not sure if we can use those words. I don't know if you know. It has this
We can.
PG. Okay, so it's called Fuck Up Nights. It's
Yeah.
an event where they invite successful people to share a story of their failure. Usually, they invite entrepreneurs. So when I was in Mexico in 2014 doing an internship at Ashoka, the social entrepreneurship network, I was invited to go to one of their events, and I really liked it because the entrepreneurs who were considered successful were sharing a story of failure. And in my view at the time, I was thinking entrepreneurs don't make mistakes. People who are successful, they don't make mistakes. They are able to bypass mistakes, and this is what leads to their success. And when I went to this event, just my myth about uh, the understanding of what constitutes a successful person in a particular field was shattered. And I said, oh, this is something we could use in Macedonia, because a lot of young people, including myself from Macedonia, at least believed that story, or at least that was my perception, that that was the belief. So we called this event I Fail. I spoke with people from Fuck Up Nights how to organize it in Mexico. They gave me some tips and ideas, and then I took those lessons and we launched the I Fail event. So this became a flagship event of the Global Shapers Hub in Skopje. Also, um, 2 years 2 years ago, well, now it's almost 2.5 years ago, we also co-authored visions for Skopje and Macedonia, 50-year long-term vision. It's a 130-page document. We have a summary in English about it. So this is our contribution to what we foresee as the long-term development of our capital city, Skopje, and also our country. We believe that countries need to think and vision strategically and then produce their strategic documents and action plans according to a particular vision. Like one of the things that happens in Macedonia, which is very salient topic, is joining the European Union, and I think it's a um, good objective to have. But I always ask, which European Union do we want to join? Do we want to join at the level of Bulgaria, which is a level that I wish that also Bulgarian citizens and people do not have. I feel like they should also have the level of Denmark, of countries like Denmark. There shouldn't be, in my view, such vast inequalities of quality of life and standards of living. And so when we envisioned for this document, we're envisioning that Macedonia joins the EU, but at the level of quality of life and standards of living that are closer to members like Denmark or Sweden, even non-EU members like Switzerland. So this is something that would be a great achievement if we can push through this document to happen in the next 40, 50 years.
That's
Basically in our lifetime. Yeah. Yeah.
This is wonderful, because this is precisely the juncture at which our generation is having to think a little bit more deeply about the world that we are going to take the reins of. And it's a pretty messed up world, you know. There's a lot of dispirited millennials, and sometimes they lose the motivation to think a little bit further. So whenever I hear that people of our generation are starting to think of the latter part of their lives, the society that will
Mm.
take shape by then, I feel very, very alleviated. I feel very satisfied. I myself work on this kind of stuff too, but I think maybe what do you think about this? I think that the biggest challenge is to square what visions, what imaginations we have versus the trajectories we're seeing of our societies. It's a big gap.
Yeah. Yeah, so the way we've compiled the visions is not a set of specific and measurable targets that we say, oh, we need to have, 100% 5G or 6G technology. So we have made the document, it's separated in 16 categories. So for example, one category is quality of life, and under that we have a set of specific visions. Overall, we have 176 visions split across 16 categories. Another category, just for the sake of illustration, is transportation or tourism
Mhm.
or education. So we have broad categories, and then we have specific visions, and we have also indicators, general indicators that should be used as a way to measure the progress over time. But we don't assign specific values of what we should meet. We think that this is part of an further discussion, a specific discussion that should involve broader expertise and so forth, that would be embedded in the particular strategic document. So in our view, the vision is to give us the direction where we want to go, where we want to be as a society, what it feels like to be in Macedonia, what do people experience, what do they see, and then we have certain values that each vision should be embodied. And one of
Mm.
the values that's, I mean, a few of the values that are critical are democracy, sustainability. So those are the kinds of values that we project, and we have specific, well, not specific, but general indicators that should be used. For example, we should measure the the levels of pollution, the air pollution in the country, because that's a very salient issue that we are facing, especially over the winter time.
Mm.
But just briefly, the inspiration for this, I mean, this is not something precisely new. This is these kinds of visions. For example, the European Union was founded upon a vision of lasting peace, and it helped bring Germany and France, were the warring parties at the time, I mean, after World War II, together. So even though there are many flaws and there are many challenges with the European Union, at least it has brought peace for the last 70 years. So there hasn't been a major war, and I think that's a great accomplishment.
Mm.
Other countries that have long-term visions are the UAE, so the United Arab Emirates. They have a vision to be the best place on earth to live in by 2071. So you can actually look up their vision. They have very ambitious visions. China also aims to be a moderately prosperous society by 2049, when the Chinese Communist Party will be celebrating their 100th year anniversary of their founding. So there are big and small countries, even at the individual level. Actually posted that on my blog, how people vision. That doesn't mean that we will get there, but I feel like that having a direction is very important. Just to bring it down to more individual level, like why 50 years? I mean, in most countries, like in Macedonia, to have full retirement, access to full retirement, you would need to contribute to it 40 years.
Mm.
So, so even a person who starts their job, their career, probably has some thoughts about, oh, where do I want to retire? Like, oh, what does my retired life look like? Do I have grandchildren? Do I live in a house? Do I garden? At least, I mean, people have some ideas, wishes. That doesn't mean that that will necessarily happen, but some people have more specific visions, and then they say, like, this is what I'm aiming for. This is what I want to do. Like, there are people from Macedonia who move abroad, let's say to Germany, and their vision is, I'm going to work there. I'm going to work there 30, 40 years, and I'm going to retire in Macedonia, or I'm going to retire somewhere else. So people have their own individual visions that stretch 4 or 5 decades. And to me, it seems unusual that a country would have plans for 4 years, which, I mean, even like if you want to open a sandwich shop, a street corner sandwich shop, you would still try to make a 5-year plan, and I feel like countries need to have a bit more long-term views. Like mortgages are usually 30 years in length. You need to vision like, oh, I'm going to be able to earn, I'm going to be productive enough to be able to pay the mortgage, the monthly mortgage that for the home that I'm living in. So it's, to me, it's unusual that a country would not have something that's longer than what an individual would think.
Yeah, yes. I take your point. And
Yeah.
speaking of 5-year plans, you're now doing your PhD. I'm very
Yes.
proud of you personally as your
Thank you.
friend that you are doing this. Tell me a little bit about what you're looking at because labor economics is not something I know very well. I don't know it that well.
Yeah.
So, what are you looking at? Are you building upon your previous work in urban
Mm.
design, urban planning? Are you leveraging the global shaper experience, or is it totally new? What's happening here?
In my mind, it's all related. I mean, I can just give you the brief introduction. I've always been interested in economic development and building cities. As a kid, I used to play uh, city simulation games like Caesar 3 or Pharaoh
Me too.
or yes, and SimCity and then Skylines. And I don't play Skylines anymore, City Skylines, because it's so addictive for me. Once I start playing, I cannot stop. So like if I start at 6 p.m., I don't stop until like 6 a.m. only because like, oh, I need to go to work or I need to like actually study. So I've actually uninstalled the game because it's too addictive.
Yes.
But I enjoyed like building cities and sometimes like creating these like I would stumble upon a crisis or like I would overextend my investments in infrastructure and then I would be like trying to fix the issue. So that was exciting for me to make sure that the these virtual citizens have the highest quality of access to health and high quality education and quality of life. So that was something I enjoyed doing. And in my undergrad, my thesis that I was writing was about because what I was always interested in as a kid was like I tried to kind of solve the problems that Macedonia was going through the virtual world and kind of practice because I was too young to be in politics. So I said, okay, I can do it in the virtual world. So I enjoyed making sure there is like in Caesar 3 full employment and that people have wages and stuff. In Macedonia, because when I was growing up, there was this transition from planned economy, from state socialism to a market-led economy. Some people would argue that we're still transitioning. And there was this privatization of state-owned enterprises in the 90s, and a lot of people were left laid off. And then I was wondering, well, what could have been done differently to make sure that these people are not left on the street? And when I was studying abroad in Argentina, I stumbled upon a case where workers of bankrupt companies who were in similar situation like the workers in Macedonia, instead of protesting or asking for unemployment or other benefits from the government, they physically occupied the factories and they operated them as worker co-ops. So I wrote my honors thesis about that topic, and in my current PhD work, I'm interested in studying again worker cooperatives or worker-owned and worker-managed companies. So these are companies where each person has the right to one vote, like in our in democratic political system. So one person, one vote. It's not one share. It's not $1 or one share and one vote. Rather, it's one person, one vote. And how these companies respond to the changes that are brought about by artificial intelligence. Worker co-ops tend to be very small, and the biggest and more successful cooperative is in Mondragon, Spain, which has over 80,000 people. But outside of Spain and the Emilia-Romagna region in Italy, there are not that many cases of successful and large-scale worker co-ops, and some research says that they're more productive and efficient than traditional companies in similar fields. But then I ask myself, if they're more productive and efficient and better for the workers, why don't we see more of them? And maybe can artificial intelligence contribute to the scaling of these, or digital technologies? Can it
Wow.
contribute to scaling these types of enterprises?
Wow, that
So
is a
that's my
fascinating area. I see where you're going with that 100%. Um, as a side, where I work right now at CAS, I had a very smart young man work under me, same age as you, sent him on a full scholarship to Amherst, and he's a Marxist
Oh,
at
okay.
heart.
Yeah.
and he worked on this co-op stuff. So I'm going to put the two of you in touch because he's a
Great.
cool guy like you, well, like me. So
Yeah.
very cool area. Now, as far as the personal life goes, you in the United States can be exposed to whichever language you want. But in terms of interactions, in terms of what you enjoy speaking, what you don't get to speak so much, what is the portfolio of languages? What do you wish you could speak more? What do you get the chance to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Cornell is located in upstate New York, and it's located in Ithaca. It's a small town. And even though it's located in a town that's more remote from bigger cities, like New York City is about 4 hours away, Cornell is a very cosmopolitan place. There are about 20,000 undergraduate and graduate students coming from over 100 countries. So what I speak mostly, I would say Spanish. There is a large community of people from Latin America, and I enjoy salsa, I enjoy bachata, I enjoy Latin music and Latin dance. So I'm actually part of this group Salsa Palante, a salsa dance troupe. So I go out to these parties and I meet people from different Spanish-speaking countries. I speak a lot of Spanish. There is actually German language cafe here, so I started going as a few weeks ago to improve my German because my spoken German is not on par with my comprehension German. I can understand a lot more than I can actually speak back. So I've started to go to those on a weekly basis. And then I've met people from Bosnia or other countries from the Balkans, and we speak Serbian or Croatian. So on occasion, I do get to keep in touch with these languages well here. Obviously, English. To a lesser extent, Portuguese. I met this guy, Brazilian guy, who I went ice skating once because I enjoy ice skating, and then he's a huge hockey fan, and I've never been to hockey. So last weekend I went to a hockey game, and hockey is very big here. It was a fascinating game. I'm just amazed how people move on ice so well, and I was very fortunate to be with this Brazilian friend I met because he was explaining to me the rules. I was clueless, I don't know. I know that the puck has to go in the goal, but I don't know the rules, like why the the refs make the calls that they do, why the game is stopped. I don't know any of that. So to a large extent, and yes, there was once a Bulgarian barber here, and I've spoken to him Macedonian Bulgarian. So and yeah, there are a few people from Macedonia here to whom I've spoken to, of course, in Macedonian. So I've been able um, to basically um, speak in all of the languages that I have in my under my belt at the moment.
Fantastic. I think the big question now, my big question to you is when are you going to be the leader of Macedonia? And when can I be your deputy? That's, I think, a
My
question I
deputy.
asked you in 2016. If not, now is the time. Tell me honestly, when are you going to lead your country and when can I be your number two?
Wow, wow, that's a very good question. I think in the right time, at the right moment, and in the right time. Let's
You're
put it that way.
a
Yeah.
real politician. Okay. That was the correct answer.
Yes.
Well, you're doing your part, you know. You have been very engaged in Macedonian society and you're going abroad, making a name for yourself, gaining the requisite skills so that you can bring them back to your people. I followed a similar trajectory, but it's likelier that you will lead your country that I will lead mine. So I'm going to jump into your boat at the right time. That's what we'll do.
Okay, that would be great. That would be great. We could use intelligent, well-connected people who have the knowledge to actually make tangible, positive impact.
Well, I think you're enough for that, but I'll be happy to support you in your
Oh,
life journey.
there is not enough. I think that we can always use more. Yeah. So
I take your point. On this happy note, I want to tell you that it is really a pleasure to catch up with you after so long. And I think we should be in touch more often. I want to see your journey as a PhD scholar and then as the sovereign of your people in due course. I'm
yeah,
by your
thank you.
side, and I'm glad that you're a part of our
Yeah.
community at HYPIA.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation. It was a pleasure to speak with you and to interview. with you, and I hope that this message will inspire more people to join HYPIA, and other people who are fans of HYPIA, that they will get encouraged to pursue studying a language, because I feel like um, I used to be very rigid with studying languages, but then I observed kids how they learn, and it's very organic. They just mimic, and this is basically how I've pursued Portuguese, and now I pursue the other languages. I just speak, I make mistakes, I allow people to make fun of me, and I just joke along with them sometimes, and it's inevitable part of the learning experience. So thank you for this community, for creating this community, for inviting me to be part of it. And I look forward to speaking with you again, and hopefully next time we will be speaking and having a wonderful chat in my channel, to be where I will be the host and you will
Yeah,
be my guest.
I look forward to that. Thank you again, Stefan.